Imagine a world teetering on the brink, not just from war, but from economic chaos. The 1930s were a brutal lesson. Competitive currency devaluations, protectionist trade barriers, and deep depressions didn't just hurt economies, they fueled global conflict. After 2 world wars within a generation, world leaders understood a stark truth. Lasting peace demanded economic stability. They needed a new financial order, one designed to prevent the next global catastrophe before the current one even ended. The interwar period had seen the collapse of the gold standard, nations abandoning fixed currency values in a desperate race to devalue their exports and hoard gold. This beggar thy neighbor policy strangled international trade, deepened the Great Depression, and sowed widespread distrust. It was a vicious cycle of economic nationalism that proved catastrophic. The world economy desperately needed a framework, a set of rules, to foster cooperation rather than competition. As World War II raged, far-sighted statesmen began to look beyond the battlefield. They realized that military victory alone wouldn't guarantee a stable future. Without a robust and cooperative international economic system, the conditions for future conflicts would inevitably re-emerge. It was a race against time, a desperate attempt to build the financial architecture of peace even as the bombs were still falling across Europe and Asia. The goal was truly ambitious: redesign the global economy. At the heart of this colossal undertaking were 2 nations, Great Britain, a fading imperial power, and the United States, an emerging colossus. Britain, though victorious, was economically devastated, while America's industrial might had grown exponentially, fueled by wartime production. The balance of global economic power was shifting dramatically, and this shift would define the coming negotiations. The stage was set for an epic intellectual battle. From the British side came a giant of economic thought, John Maynard Keynes. A brilliant, aristocratic intellectual, Keynes had warned of the dangers of punitive post-World War I reparations. Now he envisioned a truly global, multilateral system, one where no single nation held undue power. His radical proposal for an international clearing union and a global currency called Bancor aimed for economic symmetry, where both surplus and deficit nations shared the burden of adjustment.
Representing the United States was Harry Dexter White, an equally formidable, though less publicly known, economist from the Treasury Department. White's vision was pragmatic and firmly rooted in American interests. He sought to secure the dollar's dominance, ensure open markets for American goods, and prevent future competitive devaluations. His plan was less about global symmetry and more about establishing a stable, American-led monetary framework with real teeth for enforcement. The venue for this historic gathering was the Mount Washington Hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, a grand, isolated resort chosen specifically to ensure privacy and focus. It hosted delegates from 44 allied nations in July of 1944. For 3 intense weeks, this remote corner of America became the crucible where the future of global finance would be forged, a far cry from the battlefields raging across the world. The stakes were incredibly high. Delegates knew that the economic structures they were designing would either lay the groundwork for a new era of prosperity and peace or inadvertently sow the seeds for another global conflict. They aimed to dismantle the protectionist barriers that had choked trade, prevent the wild currency fluctuations that stabilized economies, and create mechanisms for international cooperation. The world literally watched, hoping for a brighter, more stable future. Keynes presented his visionary plan for the Bancor, a new international unit of account. His idea was a bold one, a global central bank that would issue this supranational currency, allowing countries to clear imbalances without resorting to painful devaluations or deflation. He argued for a truly balanced system, where nations with large surpluses had as much responsibility to adjust their economies as those with deficits, promoting global demand. White, however, had a different vision. His proposal, centered around a stabilization fund, was designed to ensure the US dollar's primacy. He advocated for a system of fixed exchange rates tied to the dollar, which would in turn be convertible to gold. This arrangement would place the burden of adjustment primarily on deficit countries and crucially on the US as the ultimate guarantor, enshrining American financial leadership. The conference became an arena for the clash of these two intellectual titans. Keynes, the elegant, persuasive Briton, argued for a new world order based on shared responsibility. White, the formidable and determined American, advocated for a system built around the existing power dynamics, with the U.S. at its core. Their debates were intense, driven by fundamental differences in economic philosophy and the national interests they represented, shaping every aspect of the final agreement. Beyond Keynes and White, delegates from 44 diverse nations arrived, each with their own national concerns. War-torn European countries urgently needed aid, while Latin American nations sought stable export markets. Navigating these varied interests, suspicions, and post-colonial aspirations made the negotiations incredibly complex. Every clause, every figure was subject to intense scrutiny and debate, pushing the conference to its very limits. Ultimately, the American position, championed by White, largely prevailed. The U.S. emerged from World War II holding over 70% of the world's gold reserves and possessing an untouched industrial base. This gave them unparalleled leverage. While Keynes' vision was admirable, the harsh realities of power and finance meant that the system would inevitably be designed around American strength and the U.S. dollar. The cornerstone of the Bretton Woods Agreement was the establishment of a fixed exchange rate system. All member currencies would be pegged to the U.S. dollar, and in turn, the dollar itself would be convertible to gold at a fixed rate of $35 an ounce. This was a crucial compromise, offering stability that mimicked the old gold standard, but with the dollar as the central anchor, a new gold-dollar standard. To manage this new system and prevent future currency wars, the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, was created. Its primary role was to oversee the fixed exchange rates, provide short-term loans to countries facing balance of payments deficits, and encourage stable economic policies. It was designed as an emergency lender, preventing individual nations' economic woes from cascading into global instability.
Alongside the IMF, another crucial institution was born: the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, now known as the World Bank. Its mission was to provide long-term loans for the colossal task of rebuilding war-devastated economies, and later to support economic development in poorer nations. These two organizations formed the twin pillars of the new Bretton Woods order, a testament to international cooperation. For Harry Dexter White, the outcome was a profound triumph. His vision of a dollar-centric global financial system had largely been realized. Though Keynes's more ambitious Bancor proposal was rejected, elements of his multilateral spirit were woven into the IMF's structure. But the dollar's ascendance was undeniable, signaling a new era of American economic leadership on the world stage, a shift that would define the next several decades. On July 22, 1944, the Bretton Woods Agreement was signed. Delegates, exhausted but exhilarated, believed they had created a blueprint for a more stable, prosperous world. They had successfully navigated immense geopolitical complexities to establish a system designed to promote free trade, prevent destructive currency competition, and foster international economic cooperation. It was a momentous achievement, born from the ashes of global conflict. The immediate impact of Bretton Woods was transformative. It provided the necessary stability for post-war reconstruction, particularly in Europe and Japan, facilitated by World Bank loans and an environment of predictable exchange rates. International trade flourished as protectionist barriers gradually came down. The system delivered on its promise to create a more stable and interconnected global economy, paving the way for recovery. For nearly 3 decades, the Bretton Woods system underpinned what many economists call the golden age of capitalism. Unprecedented economic growth and rising living standards became the norm across much of the Western world. The fixed exchange rates removed much of the financial uncertainty for businesses, encouraging long-term investment and cross-border commerce, leading to sustained prosperity.
This era also solidified American economic hegemony. With the dollar as the world's reserve currency, backed by gold, the U.S. held immense financial power. This wasn't just about trade, it was about political influence, enabling the U.S. to finance its global commitments,
project power, and lead the free world during the Cold War. The dollar truly became king, a symbol of American strength and global financial leadership. However, as the 1960s progressed, cracks began to show. As Europe and Japan rebuilt their economies, they became economic powerhouses, challenging America's once dominant position. The U.S., financing the Vietnam War and expanding social programs, began to run persistent trade deficits. This meant more dollars circulated globally, eroding confidence in America's ability to convert all those dollars back into gold at the fixed rate. This fundamental flaw was known as the Triffin dilemma. The world needed more dollars to facilitate global trade and growth, but for the U.S. to supply those dollars, it had to run balance of payments deficits. Yet these deficits paradoxically undermined the very confidence in the dollar's convertibility to gold, which was the bedrock of the entire system. It was an impossible balancing act. Ultimately, the Bretton Woods system, designed for a post-war recovery, struggled to adapt to a new era of globalized finance and resurgent national economies. The burden of maintaining the fixed exchange rates became unsustainable for the U.S. The pressure culminated in August of 1971 when President Richard Nixon unilaterally ended the dollar's convertibility to gold, effectively dismantling the Bretton Woods system. Though the Bretton Woods fixed exchange rate system officially ended, its legacy endures. The IMF and World Bank continue to shape global finance, evolving to meet new challenges. Its spirit of international cooperation, its focus on stable exchange rates, and its ambition to foster global prosperity remain foundational principles in economics. Bretton Woods proved that through collective will, nations can indeed build a more stable and interconnected economic world.